Hi, it's Jasmin. You know, that girl who did you know what way before the internet ever existed. Join me and my special guest every week as we talk about anything and everything because nothing is too taboo. So punch your ticket and get on board the Krazy Train with me, Jasmin St. All aboard! Welcome to a brand new episode of Krazy Train Podcast. This week's guest, you may have seen him on Dark Side of the Ring on Vice TV. Let's welcome to the show, Marcus Buff Bagwell. Thank you so much for joining me today. You are still buff, like completely buff. What is your secret to staying in shape?
Man, I was taught a diet years ago, and I thought the guy was crazy. And I was back when we were trying to get in shape. It was about weight. It was about the bigger you were. We were trying to get big, and that was the idea, was big. So more weight on a scales, the better you looked, is what we thought. And then, so I remember I broke my neck, and I came back from my broken neck at 263. I'd lost 50 pounds on my broke neck injury because I got food poisoning and several surgeries, and I couldn't touch a weight. I couldn't touch a supplement, nothing. So it was 50-pound weight loss. So I went from 210 to 263 of nothing but just muscle, but heavy, I had abs, but that smooth, most powerful man in the world kind of abs, the bloated iron sheet kind of abs, and just a big boy, and this guy showed me this diet that was, like a pro bodybuilder diet, which is 6 days a week. Nobody can do a zero carb diet. Nobody, because in a piece of gum, there's 2 grams of carbs. So it's nearly impossible to do a zero carb diet through the day. But what is considered a zero carb diet to a pro bodybuilder is fibrous carbs. Like, you can eat a bucket of broccoli before you go to bed and nothing's going to hang on you. You can take a bite of a baked potato before bedtime and it's going to stick on you. It's what you eat and when you eat it. So 6 days a week, Buff Bagwell did as zero of carbs as possible, which was the only carbs I ate 6 days a week were broccoli, cauliflower, fibrous carbs, collards, turnip greens, green beans, very limited. That's it. That's about it on carbs. Then you got steak, chicken, fish, eggs, any kind of protein you want. 50 grams of protein, 5 times a day, 250 grams of protein every day of my life without fail. It's 250 is the number, and 6 days a week as zero carbs as possible. And being no more than probably 70, counting every broccoli, and a cup of broccoli has like 6. So it's going to add up a little bit, but fibrous carbs. And then 1 day a week, you eat everything you want for 24 hours. Dairy Queen, pizza. And I remember it worked to the point where I told my trainer, I go, I'm not going to cheat. He goes, you got to. I said, you're crazy. I've got abs. He goes, your body needs fat. It needs carbs. And by doing it this way, you'll see how it works. So I remember doing it, and I was bigger, leaner, and more vascular after my cheat day. So it all became a Monday Night Nitro bodybuilding contest for me and Lex. That's what guys do 2 or 3 times a year. We were doing it 52 times a year with Nitro. Then you add Thunder and you got 104 times a year. You're trying to make a bodybuilding show, but we still tried. We would do the zero carbs, and when you would carb load is what you call it. You carb loaded on that Saturday or Sunday, and by the time Nitro hit at 8 p.m., you hope for the best. And sometimes I nailed it, and sometimes I woke up Tuesday morning going, I just missed it. It's like a bodybuilding show, but I still do that regimen of 6 days a week. I eat super, super, super clean, which is 250 protein, as low a carbs as possible, one cheat day, and then you do it again, wash and repeat.
Wow. I don't know how you do that. I mean, I'm already pretty petite. Like, we are a very small family. I'm 103 pounds. My bad days, I'm 107. Then I feel fat. But it's probably, it's HGH and things like that I take. But if I get bigger implants, and I think that adds like 5 pounds to me. So those don't count.
No, they don't.
No, it does not. I think they should be mandatory, by the way.
Oh, across the board, plastic surgery is high rated, and for me, I love it.
Yeah, that's how everyone should think. I mean, it's such a tough thing. I don't know about implants like calf implants, arm implants if you're wrestling. That's got to be dangerous.
Well, do you know that? Do you know my story of calf?
No, I have to hear this.
1993. I can't believe you got to do your homework a little more. This is a good one.
I like to know.
I almost died from a calf implant surgery. So, 1993, doctors were telling me that maybe 100 people in the world had a calf implant at this junction. I see a guy that goes to my gym that had calf implants, and they looked spectacular. I investigated the situation, found the doctor, go get an consult. I see the guy's calves, I feel them, I look at them, I ask him a bunch of questions. I go talk to another guy that had them done in North Carolina. I decide to do it, and 3 days later they had to pull them out, and I had what was called compartment syndrome. Let me tell you, anytime you ask a doctor or tell a doctor about compartment syndrome, that's the most horrible thing you can say to any orthopedic or any doctor, because the next stage behind compartment syndrome is amputation. So I was hours away from amputating both my legs at the knees from a calf implant surgery that was in 1993.
Yeah.
So I've got no calves. I still got skinny calves, and I'm out 15 grand.
That's some scary stuff. So many things could go wrong. And with all these places popping up in like Turkey and Mexico where they do tourism, they're like tattoo shops. There's one in every freaking corner.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Obviously, those are the brighter or maybe not so bright times of the 90s. Going into the darker side of things, because I like to start dark, then go light and end on a super high note, like higher than a kite.
Sure.
If we can, without drugs. After WCW, I mean, when Vince bought things up, it really monopolized the business. It ruined competition. It ruined what good business is. And a lot of guys lost their careers, a lot of women too. How did you get mixed in with gigolos? I mean, what was that all about? Like, it was very shocking to me. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying it was very shocking.
It was just a financial it was just a financial situation. It was at the time where I needed some money, and so it was a very it really was. Of course, media makes it bigger than it is, but it was a very short lived thing. That was a time that we were just it was presented to me, and when you're really stretched for money, things will happen. But I will say that it made sense at the time. Looking back on it now, of course it does not, but at the time it made sense. And so we did it for a short period of time, and it led to a lot of crazy stuff that ended up being not a good decision.
I could only imagine. I mean, I've heard stories. I used to run a brothel before, so I could tell you things left and right. Like,
That's a really nice way of saying the H house.
it depends, like what it looks like and what kind of people are going through there. I mean, sometimes you don't know what's walking through that door. Did you ever have a man perhaps book you with his significant other out of being a fan or anything like that?
There was no connection with any of that ever. It really wasn't. It was completely. I thought maybe it would be associated with the wrestling, but it never really was. And it was, again, it was a kind of a short lived deal. It just, of course, when the media got it, they make it bigger and worse than it is, of course. But looking back at my life, it was a bad decision, but it was one that at the time, I was just stretched for money. So it made sense at the time and ended up being a bad decision.
Do you really think all things are bad decisions? Because I feel like we learn from things, you know?
That's a good. That's a way. That's a very good way of looking at it. I think, like the saying you hear is, what don't kill you makes you stronger. Even though it's a saying you hear a lot, I believe in it. Another saying is that I used to hate, and it could always be worse. And I remember I was having a hard time during this time of doing the show, the Gigolo show and things. I was lost. And I remember thinking, you know what, man? I said, I'm not going to say that anymore. I said, it can always be worse. That's bull crap. I'm not saying it no more. So I took it out of my vocabulary. I said, I'm not saying it again. And I remember it wasn't long at all before God forced that back into my life. It can always be worse. Always. So that's a saying that is definitely back into my world, and I fully respect it. Goes, buddy. And my father tried to teach me that, and I did learn it for a long time. And now like I said, I put it back into my vocabulary. But my dad would always go, "What's wrong with you?" And I'd tell him what was ever wrong with me. He'd go look in the mirror, brother. And I go, what? He goes, go look in the mirror. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, brother, you're fine. Let it go, man. And then my brother used to always we'd go by somebody with a wheelchair. And my brother would go, yeah, brother, look at that. So it can, no matter how bad it is in your life, I promise you, be careful with that term because it can always be worse.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize every morning when they wake up, they win the lottery because you're waking up alive. You've got all of your limbs, hopefully, unless you're next to bed with Lorena Bobbitt or something. But for the most part, you're together. Um, Now, being involved in the adult film business, it was very difficult to date people. You would date people within the business sometimes. And I know that you had a normal relationship. Were there parameters of what you were allowed to do and not allowed to do that wouldn't encroach upon your relationship, personal relationship?
No, there's no rules on me whatsoever at all. I had nothing, nobody over me or anything. It was just, it was a site that you could contact me for information. And like I said, this thing was it was short lived. It was just something that um, people they saw, and of course the media and everybody took it to a bigger parameter. I mean, I remember, researching it myself of what they got paid and how to do it, and if you could, how much money was involved. But it just, at the time, I remember we decided we weren't going to go there. That was too far to go. I remember Hogan's video had came out, and maybe Kim Kardashian's video too, and some other stuff. So that was definitely not the route we wanted to go. But so we found out pretty quick that what we did was a bad decision. And like you said, I think I grew from it and realized, hey, that didn't work, and let's try a new way here.
Actually, I think it's pretty cool, to be honest with you, because not everyone can live that story and tell that story. I don't think most wrestlers your age, or our age, I should say, because I think we're in the same bracket, could get away with doing that. And it's an adventure. I see the type of things these guys, all kinds of depravities and stuff like that. Are women less tame than men? Like, did anyone ever ask you to wear the get up in the ring, like the hat and the chain and all that?
No, no, nothing like that. Again, it's really weird, but it was never connected to that. Even, I remember one of the situations was they wanted me to shave my goatee, which is completely, completely opposite of what Buff Bagwell was. So that was the only parameter that ever even entered me, but no kind of, rules or what to do or anything really. But, when I danced at a young age, I was a stripper at a young age, and to me that's like wrestling. That's like pro wrestling to me. It's exactly the same thing. You got a character, you got an outfit, and you go out and perform. But that would be the time we had like a cowboy, I had the construction worker, you had that kind of stuff is what I came into when I was trying to make money at a young age and lost. My parents went broke in 1988, my senior year, and I came from a very wealthy family, so it was a real shock, and it was over quick. 17 years of my life we were rich, not just wealthy. We were filthy rich, and just like that, man, it was over. And so it was like three boys, me and two brothers were like, what do we do? And my dad had a little money, but I was the baby. So I didn't really know what to do. And the two brothers had houses and wives. And so he took care of them best he could. And, to me, what do I want to do? And I wanted to do some kind of sports something, but I didn't know what. And massage therapy happened to be what looked like the best possible solution at the time because I loved bodybuilding. I love bodies. And it was one part, and it cleaned up a lot for massage therapy. It went from masseuse to the word massage therapist. And Atlanta School of Massage was really trying to clean up the massage world. And just $10,000. It was a full college prep anatomy physiology course, which you need for sports medicine also. I had a horrible grade point average in school because we didn't need a grade point average. We were going to work for the company, for the family, for the lumber company. So schooling didn't matter. We went to school to play ball. Is all that me and my brothers went to school for. That's it. We loved ball. We went to school to play ball. There was never a college plan. It was never a grade point we needed to reach. We needed to graduate to go work at Southeastern Building Supply. So that was all that was in charge for us. So but it was the massage therapy was really well. It was really a good thing. But a minute ago you were talking about, there's a thing in wrestling called heat. Well, heat means the other word heat is jealousy is what it means. And I've been dealing with jealousy my whole life. I mean, when you're a rich kid, there's jealousy involved. And then you add to that, okay, he's a good looking rich kid. Now you've got double the heat or double the jealousy. I mean, I remember my senior year. This is 30 years ago, guys. It's more than that. It's 34 years ago. I remember I was batting 700 as a high school senior, which is unheard of. And my parents, the coach asked them for some wood for the benches. We were building Sprayberry High School was building a baseball field. My parents gave the school 4 boards, the board you sit on and the board on the back for 2 benches. And I was starting because my parents gave them lumber, so jealousy or heat I've had my whole life. Then you add the money to the good looking kid till he's a good athlete, till he pulls up to school in a red Corvette. I mean, it was tons of heat. I took that heat and came into pro wrestling. So it was like a heat seeking missile. And that's what I was. And but then when people met me, they were like, wow, he's really a super nice kid. He's a good guy. So it took a while, but when it took, everybody loved Marcus Bagwell because he was a good, honest, straight up kid. And so I got over really quick once, Sting was the first one to really see it. And even the boys were like, what are you doing riding with Bagwell, man? And, Sting was like, man, Bagwell's cool, bro. And it just took a while. And you got to remember, there's a 10-year gap there. 10 years is a lot. And so the next youngest guy, I think, was 8. But you're talking about 8 to 10 years older. Everybody in the locker room is 8 or 10 years older than me. So it took some time, but when it finally, they really did see that the Southern gentleman, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, was a pretty good kid.
It seems like you have really good survival skills, which is one thing a lot of kids that are well-to-do don't have. So I give you complete kudos to that. That is amazing. To come from that type of a background, then decide to go stripping. And it's different for men than it is for women. A lot of people don't understand that. Now, was that audience predominantly male or female back in that time?
Oh, female.
Thank God. I could only imagine if it's the opposite. It's got to be so creepy.
That would be rough.
So nobody ever recognized you. Nobody tried to fantasy book anything or anything weird with wrestling. Great.
And again, I think that's where it originally first came from, is thinking that would be I was known from that, but nothing. I mean, never, not once. Like I said, even I shaved the goatee one time for a situation, but it wasn't nothing to do with wrestling. Nothing ever. It was just off of the way I looked
And your personality.
and personality.
I think a lot of people fail to realize this. You have this new wave of sugar babies, as I call them, they're the dumbest bitches in the world, because they're like, they don't get it. It's not about, you know, sleeping with your daddy, or as we call him, an uncle is what you call them. Um, anytime you see the older guy with the younger girl, it's her uncle. It's not her sugar daddy. I think a lot of it is based upon company, conversation, and attention. Did you feel that a lot of these dalliances with these women was mostly an emotional thing, like someone looking for someone to pay attention to them? Because I think that that's what we lack a lot in society.
You know, unfortunately, Jasmin, this thing again, it lasted such a short period of time. We're talking about two or three times of 2 or 3 dates that happened, and that was it. So it really, and ironically, as crazy as it is, wrestling was nowhere involved. It was, I really think it was just they saw me on the app and thought, man, he's a good looking guy, and then, you know, the resume, and then so I really think that's where it came from. But this thing was really, you know, like anything you get it with media, you know, they get a hold of, and it's gonna let's have some fun with it. But it really was short lived. So everything you're saying is exactly what I thought would happen, but it was short lived. So I never crossed those. And anybody would pop, and they would hear this story would think everything you're saying happened times 10, but it just wasn't enough time for any of it to happen. But even though it still didn't happen, blows my mind that they didn't somewhere along the line, my gear or my boots or nothing to do with it at all.
Yeah, to show up in the room with like the hat, the boots, and everything, and come like stumbling in there, the entrance and everything, baby, busting through that door.
As I'm hearing you say it, not once, and it blows my mind even hearing it again. Because that's what I would have done if they would have, yeah, bring the hat.
That would have been great. Yeah, I'm surprised people. I just feel with women sometimes it's more of an attention thing than it is a physical thing. So that's why I brought that up. Is it true that Missy Hyatt got you started in pro wrestling?
Yes, Missy. So I remember I was at a swimming pool, and I remember again with my looks, I felt like that massage would be a good thing. I was engaged to be married um, to my first wife, and I was at the pool one day, and I remember I was at the junction of women were not coming to see me to get a massage, and it blew my mind that I couldn't get the women to be comfortable enough to get a massage. I was very well mannered. I was a super nice kid. I was a super good kid. And I'm 19, and I go to the Atlanta School of Massage. It takes 10 months to graduate, and I'm watching massage therapists come into the school that look like, I hate to say it, they look sick and they look sickly, like little bit, you know, they got the flip flops on and their little piece shirts, and nobody was tan and nobody was in the gym. I was over there like a pro bodybuilder trying to be a massage therapist. It was like, I said, I'm going to make a killing at this thing. And then I remember the first woman walked into my appointment, and before I could even say hello, she turned around and walked out. I went and got her. I go, where are you going? She goes, there's no way I'm letting you massage me. And I was like, what? And looking back at it, 35 years ago, looking back at it, I mean, the light bulb went over my head, but I tried to put it out because it was negative, but it was, oh my God, women are going to be self-conscious. You're going to have a battle on your hands right here. But I kind of blocked that out and shoved it away because I just spent 10 months doing this and $10,000. So I started fighting. I started fighting for it. And at one salon, I even rubbed shoulders for like $5 or $10 while they were getting their nails done to make them feel comfortable. And it worked at that salon. But to the world, it still was, there's no way I'm let. So I'd be like, why? Tell me why. They'd say, my husband would kill me. I may have some fat on my back. I just heard the craziest things. But I mean, it seems like it was 5 years, but in my 1 year probably of really trying to make massage therapy work, I think I massaged 2 women in a year. So anything you do where you don't have 100% of the population, you're not going to make it. if McDonald's only served men and not women, they wouldn't make it. You got to have both sides of the coin. You know, you got to have men and women to make something successful. And so even with wrestling, same thing. You know, if the dudes don't like it, you're probably not going to make it. You got to find something that you get both sexes involved. And so I was at the pool one day thinking, what am I going to do? Because I really had, like, didn't know what to do because I only had a man clientele, and it was no women that were wanted to get massaged by me because they were uncomfortable. And so at that junction, Missy Hyatt saw me. She had no idea any of that was going on. She just saw me at the pool, and that night she knocked on my door. Over the door, I go, "Hey, what's your name?" "I'm Missy Hyatt. I'm with WCW. What is WCW? World Championship Wrestling. Okay." You know, I talked to her like I hate to hear fans talk to me, which is like, wrestling? What? You mean on TV? I mean, that's how I was too. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I said, wait, you mean that television stuff? Like, and all the stuff I hate to hear, I was saying to her. And I was like, well, I know Ric Flair and, you know, Road Warriors. And so long story short, she's like, you know, you should be one. And I was like, those guys don't make any money. And she goes, our lowest paid guy makes $100,000 a year. And I said, tell me more.
Are you looking for a safe way to bet online where there is something for everyone, including yourself? Then go to betonline.ag, where I am sure you will find something. Don't forget, it's betonline.ag for the most variety and the safest way to bet online.
She set me up to go to the WC. There wasn't a school at this time. There was a warehouse down in Griffin, Georgia, there was a warehouse, an empty warehouse with a ring in it that Jody Hamilton and a guy named Buddy Lee Parker would train guys in. And they called it the WCW school, but there wasn't no sign and there wasn't no locker room. It was a warehouse. It was like the hood, you know. And I'm looking at this dump, and they go $3,000. I said, 3,000? Are you kidding? $3,000 for this? And so I came back to Missy. I said, Miss, I ain't got $3,000. You kidding? So she found a guy named Steve the Brawler Lawler to train me for $1,500. And, you know, he beat me up for about a week and then showed me how to do it, which is the process of the time that I came into business. Is they didn't show you how to really do what you needed to do until you looked like you could do it. And about a week later, and really beat up, he said, you can do this. He goes, let me show you how to do this. And he eased up on me and showed me the ins and outs of it. And I got good. I mean, that's not true. I was horrible for a long time, it seemed. But I couldn't figure it out. It was really tough. And then I remember going to Global and walking in the building, walking in the locker room and seeing the Hills and the Babies talking to each other. And I said, wait a second, y'all can talk before going out there? Because I had never done that. I was locking up with guys you hadn't seen all day from opposite sides of the building at skating rinks, going out in front of 30 people and trying to call a match from lockup. And it was horrible. It was horrible. But little did I know, I was getting better at it. And when I could talk to my guy a little bit, man, I went from horrible to pretty daggum good fast, because I've been trying to get better by just calling it in the ring. It was horrible. And I mean, but yeah, so that really made it a lot easier. And then, you know, then I was up and running.
I feel like that's a lost art of listening and reacting these days. I worked on a show a few months ago, and this one guy who's on TV, uh, he thought he was basically holier than thou. And you have the other guy who's telling you to stop, stop, stop. I'm injured. And I could hear it. I'm to the side of the ring and he wouldn't stop. It's just a different breed and generation of wrestlers. I feel as though some of them are just very entitled when they step into indie shows, and you do indie shows a lot, right?
Yes, I do. And especially coming off, when I came off TV, I was the biggest name in a long time to come off TV to go to indies, because what happened to me was really crazy. Whether it was bad, good, whoever, whatever the judgment is, it was unfortunate, and Buff Bagwell was in the indie world really quick. And so it was like, wow. So I remember them trying to give me my own locker room. And this, I was like, no, I'm dressing right in the middle right here. So the Marcus Buff Bagwell never took a locker room, never wanted anything different, because it just was going to be the piece that's going to push these guys away. And instead, my Marcus Buff Bagwell's attitude throughout the 20 years of independence, you will not find two negative stories out there in it, because there just wasn't. It was just all the guys were good to me. I was good to all the guys. Now, the good stuff don't get around a lot, but it's stuff like one night I got to a show and I found out the guys didn't get paid. And so I paid each guy a little money out of my payday. Little things like that I'll forget, that somebody will remind me with an email or something, but I did care and it mattered. And so even though egos are huge in this business, Missy is who prepared me not to be like that, because she knew by looking at this good looking kid that I was going to come in with this word I had never heard before called heat. And she knew that I needed to come in. She also saw the nice kid, because she lived next to him, of what I was. And she was, but they're going to overlook that. He goes, so you need to be better than everybody else. If she hadn't prepared me for that, it would have been shakier in the beginning, but down deep, I'm a good person anyway, so it still came through. But she really did help me kind of get ready for what was coming.
Yeah, she's one of my oldest friends in the business. It's one of,
I love her.
she really is. She is the second person I worked with in the business, and I've known her since the 90s, believe it or not.
That's
And
great.
yeah, I mean, I pulled some ribs on her a few times. She could tell you one day I did pull the biggest rib of all time, like the best in the business. This is what guys have even said, with that long drive to get to a show that I wasn't even booked on. And she was, but anyway.
Wow.
Well, she pissed me off a couple of weeks before. I don't know if she was, a little bit off with some things. And, I'm working with you in the ring, and, you could injure me. So, she also gave my phone number to Gene Simmons once. So I think it was heat of some type.
Wow.
It's just, I really want some middle-aged guy with balding head talking to me till 5,
Coming at you.
looking for me till 5 a.m. at a hotel.
Thanks, Missy.
Yeah, thanks, Missy. Yeah, she's done a lot for people. She's one of the most humble women in the business. What are your thoughts on the business nowadays as far as the products that are out there? Do you follow anything specifically?
I do. I follow all of it. I love pro wrestling. I love watching all of it. I watch TNA. I love Joe Hedry. I love the business. I love the business. I love AEW. But I got a bunch to say about all of it. And it starts with how everybody looks. When you look back at the 90s, which I think unarguably was the best time of pro wrestling, all the guys look like superheroes, and now there isn't one superhero. There's a bunch of regular guys wrestling, and I don't get it. I remember I wanted Superman. I wanted Batman, even Aquaman was jacked, but everybody's like a normal Joe. And I don't understand that. I mean, even when The Rock came back briefly, it was like the pro wrestler Rock was in the ring with a couple of kids. The couple of kids was Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. I don't understand how. I mean, the roster, let's face it, the roster was crazy strong for Monday Nitro and for Monday Night Raw. But what happened? What happened to where did the superheroes go? I don't know, but they're gone. And there's nobody that's bigger than life. Like, I had to fight and scratch and dig for this word, pro wrestling, my whole career, looking the way I look. What does somebody like Sami Zayn say when somebody says wrestling's fake? He's 180 pounds. I don't understand. I mean, it just isn't believable that this red-headed 180-pound guy is going to come out and be the Intercontinental Champion? It's just, I can't wrap my head around it. So that part of the business is tough for me, that these guys aren't believable. They're not big enough. They're not, I mean, there was a day in the WWF where if you wasn't 6'3", they wouldn't even look at you. Thank God that rule went away, because I'm 6 foot, 6'1" tops. So I'm glad it went away, but there's just got to be some parameters of when there's a 160-pound guy on the rope and there's 5 guys down here and he's jumping off on all of us on AEW. It's the craziest thing to me. I can't quite wrap my head around it, because at WCW Monday Night Nitro, you'd have got fired over that. You would have been fired. You'd have got to the back and you'd have been told to leave, and it would have been over. So it's just a really, for an old timer, which I'm considered an old timer now, to an old timer, it's really hard to watch. It's hard to watch, man, because we just, I think we were bigger, we were more muscular. The word is we were more believable, I think. And it doesn't look good when a guy comes out and he's 170, 180, 190 pound guy, and you're having him try to beat up this big guy. It's lost its luster of superhero to me.
I feel as though they don't have any character work. Like with ECW, what worked for them was that these wrestlers were their authentic selves. Okay. They didn't, like, yes, New Jack was gangster. Sandman is a brawler that will smash that beer and drink it with you. Yeah. These are who these people were. It was Balls Mahoney, a little bit amplified. You guys had great outfits and gimmicks, and you did, you did yourselves up. Now I feel it's just, you see these guys walk into the building. I don't know if they're the ring crew. Do you look like you have a job, sir? Or are you coming in from your shift at Starbucks, sir? Like, which one is it? I've never seen such a lazy, like, when you go to work somewhere, you dress like that. It's just an element of laziness that's been fostered in these past few years. Hopefully it changes, because people pay to see people cooler than them.
You said that perfectly. I want to look on TV and find somebody that's cooler than me that I can look up to. When I look at that, it's The Rock. But I cannot find many more than The Rock to look at to say that. I'm not going to look at Seth Rollins and say, I want to be Seth Rollins. It's not going to happen. And I love Seth Rollins, because there's nobody else to love. There is no big jacked up guy that I want to see that's cool. And you're right. The character thing, like I said, when, if they don't have the part, if they got the character of, like, the Brooklyn Brawler, for example, he was the brawler. So if he's 190 pounds and he's the brawler, okay, I get it, but you got to have some kind of character or something. If you're not going to look the part, it's got to be a character thing with it. But they're just simply not cool enough. And you said it perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, they're not cool enough. And it's just, I don't feel as though there's any character work. And we're also missing the whole aspect of etiquette. When you go into a locker room, you introduce yourself, especially if it's someone else's home that you're in. And that's another thing I've observed on the indies. Or maybe it was just this one specific wrestler. What are your thoughts on deathmatch wrestling?
I don't know much about it. I've seen it on video. I've never been at one of those events. When I see it on film, it's just kind of hard to pull off. I mean, nobody dies. A lot of this stuff is very dangerous and crazy. I get it, but a lot of it, from the moment we as pro wrestlers get in the ring, we're having to do something that's very hard. We're trying to show the people that 99% know that this is predetermined or fake, whatever they want to call it. And we're trying to show 99% of the eyes that are on me. I'm trying to show them that grabbing this guy's arm is real. And that's a hard job to do. But if you can take that arm and make it real by the way you do it, then you've done something special. And I just feel like that with the death thing, I just feel like there's a lot of, I remember the first time a guy choked me. And I want to give both of you guys this, and you're going to think about this the rest of your lives. When a guy's choking a wrestler, 9 times out of 10, where will you see his hands?
Usually on his neck.
Oh God. Oh
Oh,
God.
when you're being
Right?
choked, it's usually up in the air. Oh my God, help. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, let me tell you something. Let me grab your throat for real and watch where your hands go.
On your hand. Yeah.
Right here. Trying to get those hands off your throat. So I remember Michael Hayes came to the school one day and I was selling like this and he really choked me and I went, and he goes, now that's selling. And I go, thank you. So to this day, though, I will still see the, oh God, I'm choking me. And it's just guys that don't know better. And it's crazy to me. But that's the idea is we're trying to convince them of something that they've at least heard is not real on some level. And we're trying to make them look at it and see that it's real. And when you got something poking out of a guy's head and he's going, oh God, my head's bleeding with his hands out here, it's not real looking. So it really goes into that parameter of this looks so hokey pokey, but a bunch of people are bleeding. So there's, of course, the blood, I think, makes it more interesting for the fans and stuff, but not a big fan of it. I don't think there's a market for it, but who knows? But to me, unless somebody dies like the gladiator days, I'm not sure it's ever going to be a real good thing.
I feel as though you can only go so far with it because I've worked enough with those. And I have to tell you, I'm surprised. Like I just got my blood work back today because I'm working somewhere else in March and everything's fine. But the amount of like debris, biohazard on unclean canvases, I don't think that they take care of their talent good enough. Yeah, I'm totally fine though.
Nasty business.
Enough is not enough for the fans. And what is it about fans that you think that draws them to the violence or the entertainment and the violence of the sport?
Well, from a very young age, man, I've heard Flair say, red means green. And from a very young, my career, thank God, my career started with, and not thank God, but my career started with the AIDS virus in the late 1980s, 88, when Reagan came in. That was the thing. So Turner didn't bleed. And so I was thankful for that because I didn't want to cut my head or cut anything anyway. So we were very anti-bleeding because of TBS. And Vince was the opposite. Vince and the WWF were opposite. But yeah, so the bleeding thing wasn't even really a deal for us. But I'm glad it wasn't. But I do think that's what it is. So red means green, which means red means more people are going to like it. They're going to, oh, he bled. I mean, to this day, 34 years later from starting this business, I still hear people, well, are those ketchup packs or you got really? So that anytime you get people wondering, it's good. It means they're good. They're big fans, but there is some kind of crazy enamor with the bleeding thing,
There really is. And it's a very dark side of humanity, I think. Maybe they wish they could go out there and do it themselves, or maybe they're thinking of their boss and doing it to their boss. Who knows? But the other thing we're dealing with is going back to what you said before, selling. I see guys get dropped into really big bumps through this, through that. Nobody's selling. Everyone's getting right up like that. It's like, whoa, okay, you're back up living your best life ever. Where do you think they lack? Do you think people are too undertrained these days to understand, or they're just too impatient? They want to get all their stuff in.
30 years ago, Jimmy Hart had a saying where he would hand you a towel and a towel, a roll of tape, and a spray bottle, and call you a pro wrestler. Because all the guys sprayed their hair, they would put tape on, and they had a towel, and they called them pro wrestlers because they wet their hair and shook it out. And me and Lex hated guys that wetted their hair. We were like, guys, we got to be in this locker room all day, man. Let's work together here, guys. But they wouldn't, of course. They were slobs and messy. But you nailed it on the head. Even in my time, they made you work for what you were getting ready to do. And it was like that badge or that certificate of I'm a pro wrestler those got handed out way too much, and they to this day I think are getting handed out. And oh, I've been in the business 5 years, I'm like, well, you don't look like you have. So it's just that thing that I think comes with everything in life. There's some fast tracks that do well, and there's some fast tracks of guys that are horrible. I think it's just they put that tag on it that I got trained and I'm a pro wrestler, and they really haven't done anything.
I think Al Snow has a fairly decent wrestling program because they teach you promos, they teach you psychology, and psychology is definitely something that is lacked. But getting back to the locker room, so you don't like people spraying the wet spray in the hair. I get that because then they start shaking it all over like a dog.
Well, it's not that I don't like it. I think when you see people when you see over 20 guys doing the same thing, I'm going to do something different. I mean, whatever it is, if it's 20 guys doing it, either that's oversaturated or that's not cool, or that's super cool and everybody should be doing it. And it's just, to me, it's just a thing that all pro wrestlers, and it seemed like Jimmy Hart was, Jimmy hated it. So he was always dogging that out, but it did make you look at the guys and go like, I mean, every go position was a spray bottle, but a lot of guys did it for their body, but most were to do their hair and just make it wet looking to go out to the ring. And if I had long hair, I would have probably done the same thing. But when I saw 80% of the talent doing it that way, I probably would have switched gears.
Well, you wouldn't go the Disco Inferno route, would you? I mean, how much hairspray did he use to keep that hair up? I'm trying to see.
I did go that route.
Did you?
My hair was up, but yeah, so gel or whatever, but it didn't make a mess.
His hair wouldn't move. Like every match he came out, it was perfect. It was like, what are you doing? Is that like some kind of a like what is this? It's impossible.
I remember coming up with my haircut, and I had like thick head of hair and up in the air and all that, and then when I presented the idea to Dallas Page, and he goes, "That's so bad that it's incredible." He goes, "You're gonna cut your." So Arn Anderson came to me when I did it. He goes, Arn's been balding his whole career, and he goes, "Tell me why you would cut your hair off, buddy." And I told him, I said, "Well, I think it looks cool, and I'm a bad guy now." And he just shook his head at me like, "You are an idiot. Why would you cut your hair off?" But to me, it was a good look. It was Clooney, George Clooney had kind of done it, and then I came in right behind that, and the Gladiator happened and all that. So it was a cool Caesar. It was on Caesar cut, and man, I got 20 years out of that haircut. So it was a good haircut to go to.
Yeah, it works well. Like with you, it worked well. I don't think everyone else could pull that off, especially half these kids with me working around. I'm still trying to get over the visual of a guy like with a bitch bun, like the bitch bun or something, walking into a locker room, pale, no tan, like nothing, no color washed out, saying he's a wrestler.
Since you brought it up first, the tanning thing, I'm gonna give you another visual I want you guys to look at the next time you're watching wrestling. Okay, so if you watch a match of me, or either today if you want me to raise my arm and show you, or a wrestling match on TV, this part of my arm and this part of my chest, this was the same color, simply because I was smart enough to raise my arms in the tanning bed.
Oh, like this?
Yes. And guess how long I did that?
5 minutes?
Half the time. Let me tell you how many pro wrestlers do that to this day. 0. Why? Your hand is going to go up in some fashion of the night. Why is this white as a ghost? It shows they have no respect for what they're doing. It blows my mind.
It's just a laziness that's been fostered across the board. I do know for a fact.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, even with film and TV, if you look at that, they no longer permit directors to actually talk to the actors a certain way, in such a way that would improve their performances and enhance things to be more believable. They have to tone it down because people are so fucking sensitive and just get retarded over things that are just not necessary.
It's sad this came to that.
Well, it's wrestling. It's an alpha type sport.
Yes.
People might call me a misogynist for saying this, but that is what it is. If I want to see all female wrestling, I'll go turn on Glow or go watch an all female league, watch wrestling. I think that sometimes they push the female wrestling way too much in these shows. You could have a women's division. I think back then we did it right, where we had some women's matches in with the wrestling. I'm not saying it's a men's sport and only a men's sport. It's just the way it is. Do you think it's a fair matchup for everyone? Do you think it's female dominated?
I have a whole other look at this. First you got to realize on the two of the highest rated television shows in the history of time, Monday Night Raw and Monday Night Nitro, there were 0 girl matches. 0. And the reason why there were 0 is, for some reason, I've never seen anything like this. For some reason, women could not figure out how to make this look cool. I don't know how. I don't know why. I'm not going to say women can't drive good and men drive better. I don't know about driving and football and baseball and wrestling. Excuse me, football, baseball, basketball. I'm not sure. But in wrestling, you guys didn't get it. I've been in the ring with women that were athletes and non-athletes and talking to them. And I'm telling you, that part I'm talking about locking up and taking an arm and working that arm, they couldn't do it. It was something where they couldn't do it. And then one day, and I see Mickie James on TV, and I go, oh my God. And it was the first attractive, beautiful girl that was wrestling like a guy. And I was like, wow, they figured it out. And now there's a lot of great matches, but there's a lot of horrible ones too. A lot. Turn on AEW. It's horrid over there. It's horrid. And so they really, for whatever reason, the woman could not figure it out. But brother, let me tell you, there's a bunch that have. Liv Morgan and the champ, the girl, Ripley, and I mean, they are incredible and they're good, but there's only a handful, brother, that are like that. And I don't, and again, there wasn't a handful 30 years ago. There wasn't a handful 20 years ago, because what I'm talking about was on the indie circuit. And I remember being in the ring, because we'd have one girls match somewhere in the card, and every night it was just all you could do to watch it. It was so bad. And there's a bunch of guys trying to help them, and it still was just horrible. But then one day I saw Mickie James, and I was like, man, here they come. They figured this thing out.
Yeah, she really has the method down. She competes in a lot of catch tournaments as well. She competed in one in France over the summer.
What's catch mean?
Catch wrestling. It's not like pro wrestling. It's catch wrestling. I think it's more collegiate.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So she's definitely skilled and ahead of her time. It's interesting you say this, because I get so many different people. Oh, well, it's not enough women's matches, and just form a fucking women's league. I like JCW wrestling because they have the format down properly. They have a great production, and they have a really good women's champ right now, but they're mixed in with their matches. They have 2-3 girls that wrestle, and they haven't polluted it with only female matches, or like 50%. What are your thoughts on intergender matches?
I remember, believe it or not, I got a great memory, but I can't remember who it was, but I had an intergender match at WCW one time. It was on Monday Night Nitro. It was me and a blonde-haired girl named Asia. Now, Asia is married to that. He dresses like Kiss he's the demon at a lot of signings. His name is Dale Torborg. His name is Dale Torborg. He's married to Asia now, but I can't remember the fourth person, but it was me, Asia, Norman Smiley, and somebody else in a match. And I think that would be a lot of fun, having the guy girl. I think it's really, and I don't see it, but I think that's pretty cool.
It works. They have that in deathmatch. It's this girl, Mickey Knuckles. She was trained by Ian Rotten or Axel, and they call her everyone's hardcore auntie, but she's gotten down with some of the guys. And I mean, I've seen her take like take those tubes and she's a blast to work with. I think you'll be working with her at that IWA WrestleMania coming up in June 14th to be exact. I'm pretty sure. Yes. Yeah, possibly. But yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. That's why I asked you about that much earlier.
Me too. I love that. I love it.
And what do you do mostly now? I know that you do the signings. Do you find that that goes a long way for you? Do you get as many as you can, or how does that work?
I've never gone to one that was like, wow, why do we come here? It was always a great turnout, always a good thing to go to. Even ones that I think, man, this may not be so good. And then it just turns out well. These things, this life after pro wrestling, really, none of us saw this coming. This was something that blew my mind and blows all the wrestlers' minds, really. But to see the turnout of the fans and to still be interested, it to me, it means a lot. And on the indie shows, I've got this thing I do on the indie shows that works phenomenal. It really is a great little thing. It's a thing where I will come out and say hello to everybody and then do a little altercation where I make somebody an honorary NWO member.
Oh, how fun.
And for the night, we come out with the NWO, all that, and Too Sweet and For Life, and he's an NWO member for the night. And we wrestle, and I manage him as the NWO member for the night, and it really works well because everybody remembers the NWO days, and it makes it a little fun for the crowd, and works really well to a live indie crowd.
Do you have any good memories of working with Reza Ramon, Scott Hall?
Yeah, no, either way, he was always Razor, but not to us. He was Scott, because that was WWF buddies and WWF stuff. But to us, he was always Scott, Not really. I was with him a lot on the same side, but Scott was rough, man. He was, he didn't like a lot of guys, and he was tough to get along with. Him and Kev were big friends, and me and Kevin are great friends. We always have been. And Kev said on his podcast once, because it's true, but it made me feel good still, is who's his longest friend in the business ever? And it's me. Back in that trip I'm telling you about where I went down to see the WCW school, at that day, Kevin Nash was in the ring getting trained. And so Kevin in Atlanta, Georgia was like the number one bouncer. So at every cool club that opened, they hired Kevin to be the cooler, like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. So Kevin was the big, bad, tough, here's a 7-foot giant that we would stand beside and take pictures when he wasn't looking just to see how big he was. It was incredible. But we were both trying to get into pro wrestling at the same exact time. So me and Kevin go back, 30, 35 years. But Scott, just not a lot of memories with him. I think I wrestled him once, and he just was always trying to get over you, man. He was tough, man. He really was tough to get along with, but he gave me some great advice, and I'll always remember this. He's the one that pointed out to me, going back to the calves, when I wore my first tights, they went down around my boot, kind of tight and skinny, and I had skinny calves. And I don't think it's something a fan would go, he looks skinny down there. But when he gave me the advice, it looked better. And it was, you need to balance yourself, Bagwell. He goes, you look so great up here. He goes, you need a bigger boot. And I heard him and I did it. And I got a bigger boot for the rest of my career. And my body symmetrically standing in the ring looked better. And that came from Scott Hall.
I'm not even going to notice it, but I have to look at photos now. So when we're done, I'm going to look at photos because that's good advice. Nowadays, you see skinny kids in the ring and they have sneakers on. They wonder why they have so many injuries. You're not taped up. You're going in there with Converse or whatever. So it's that whole element. Oh, well, anyone can do this. No, it's not a free for all. Not everyone can do this. Not everyone's cut out for it. That's for sure too. Have you sustained any major injuries from your wrestling days?
Well, in 1998, I broke my neck on live TV. So April 22nd, 1998, when Rick came off with a bulldog, he hit me with this bulldog, and it broke my neck at 3-4. but it didn't sever my spine, but it hit my spine. And I didn't know all this information when it's happening. All I knew was I was paralyzed. So for 8 or 9 minutes, I'm paralyzed in the ring, thinking my life's over. And I'm talking to Lex in the ring, like on my back during commercial break, saying, look, I can't move anything. It's over, man. It's over. And then after the video, the camera came back and they had me on the board, all duct taped down to the board. I could move my fingers and toes, but it was 3 hours of MRIs and CAT scans before I knew I was okay. And I set up and I was 100%. I go, what happened? How can I go from being paralyzed to that? And he goes, the doctor said I bruised my spinal cord. So it hit it, but didn't sever it. So when it hit it, it bruises. And when you bruise your spinal cord, you think you're 100% paralyzed. Swelling goes down and you can move again. But the problem is you got to fix it, or if you fall again, it's then going to sever it. So they took me straight to the hospital. I spent 3 days in the hospital before the surgeon could even work on me. So that was the biggest one. And that's when I lost 50 pounds and all that. My first match back was 10 months later. I couldn't work out for 3. So it was a journey, but I came back in tip top shape and had another great run at it. And then, the rest of my stuff has to do with injuries from car wrecks. So really that's the only ring, shoulders. I'm sure the ring's got some things, but fake shoulder, fake hip, fake knee, and a bolted together neck. Most of those are from car wrecks though.
It's like the Bionic Man / Frankenstein, but you don't exactly have the screws. How many car wrecks have you been in?
Too many.
Not like
Too many.
Sonny, not like Tammy Sitch.
No.
Okay,
Maybe
good.
not that bad, but yeah.
As long as it didn't result in the death of anyone, which it's
And
very
that's
selfish.
what actually got me sober was the last car wreck. I should have no doubt been dead or in prison on that one. But I'm grateful for that wreck because it got me sober. Even though it left me crippled in my right leg, I'm sober, and that's a much better life I've had.
How many years have you been sober?
2.5. My sobriety date is August 27th.
Oh, that's
22.
lovely. So then you get your 3-year cake and everything else. I've been to those
3 years.
meetings I had friends that were going there. So I would go. It was just such a different atmosphere. You'd go to the one in Malibu, which I don't think is there anymore, but you see everyone being so dramatic and acting up and wanting to like show off the handbags. Everyone wants to go to this celebrity that's there or that celebrity. It's like, wow, are these people here to get sober? So there was a guy running the meeting, right? Speaking, then at the end of it, yeah, by the way, I just went out this week and it had some pain pills and Jim Beam. So it's like,
well, that's going against the program a little bit.
It really is. It's an amazing thing. And I guess it works if you work it.
It does work if you work it. I really believe in AA. It's something that I never would have been, I never would even have tried it unless I was forced to by the program I'm in, but I love it now. It's something I really believe in. It's just it's a good way to get sober, and a lot of years at certain clubhouses you go to that it's just proven it's on the wall with a lot of years of sobriety.
Yeah, it seems like your life has become the lighter side of the ring, not the darker side of the ring, which is what most people like those stories, but not everything is dark.
Well, and even the dark side episode, I had a couple fans come up and go, your story isn't dark.
It isn't.
It's crazy. It's a crazy story, but it's not necessarily dark because I ended up being able to. I mean, thank God I lived to tell the story, and a lot of times guys don't, But it's as close to dark as you can, but ending with a positive note instead of a negative note.
I don't think you would have stood a chance for a woman trying to kill you, like a trick. It's highly impossible. I could tell you one thing, like women have that happen way, it happens too often is what I'd like to say, even in a contained environment. Really quick, were there any legalities to that because of what they were doing? Because I'm trying to figure out. I thought it's illegal in certain states or countries. So how do you know if they got around that? Obviously, because you didn't go to
Around what?
the Gigolo program. Because it would seem as though it's illegal to some degree.
I never heard it, nothing like that. Again, it never came up in the couple months I did it, it never came up legalities of anything. So it was pretty just cut and dry.
Yeah, and thank God there are no crazy incidents like having you do the Buff Bagwell entrance into the room and keeping the chain on and keeping
And
the
then
hat on.
somebody pulling
Thank
your
God.
gun.
Or some guy showing up that looks like Booker T. Hey, we're gonna rumble.
Yeah, what happened? What happened here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it seems like you've had a pretty interesting life. So, is there a book in the works for you?
They're very beginning stages. I've had a couple of offers, and it just didn't feel right at the time or whatever. But now I think I do want to. I really think that it would be a really good book. I do. So we got two people that are kind of talking to us right now about doing one. So I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I am too. I'll definitely pick up a signed copy. And if people want to find out where you're appearing or if they want to buy your stuff, where can they go?
My store is marcusbuffbagwell.com. Twitter, Facebook, all that is all Marcus Buff Bagwell. But the best way to get me, if you really truly want Marcus Buff Bagwell, it's at gmail.com.
And are those some of the things you're selling, or are those just little memories back there? They're cute.
This is my favorite protein. This is my
Okay.
favorite protein ever. This is my pillow. These are Pillow Buddies are on the store, and my action figures are on the little store if you go to .com. But that's the hats too. But that protein is the best protein I've ever had in 54 years of my life. I'm not kidding. It's just I'm not sure of the price, but if you go to blackstone.com and you put in Buff 20, you get 20% discount. And so it's check the prices and see if you like the price or not, but 20% discount. But if you go to Buff 20 at blackstone.com. And then also the real big thing, man, for me right now is this. It's the Marcus Buff Bagwell YouTube channel. This thing has got serious traction right now and is doing super well. And I do what we're doing. I just go out and tell, transparent stories that a lot of guys don't tell. And I lived through it to tell it. So I go on there and talk about stuff that happened along the way, and people really are loving it.
That's awesome. I mean, that's interesting. I like people when they speak their minds. Sometimes it's something you can't do.
It's a very rare topic. Most men and women are very cut off to what they talk about, and maybe they're embarrassed about what they've done in their life, and I get that, but to me it's something like, again, I do believe, like the old sayings, I do believe what don't kill you does make you stronger, and I do believe you do get something out of everything, and so is it really a bad decision? Like you said, maybe not. Maybe you learn something and you move on.
Yeah, or you just learn more about people, which is another interesting thing, studying the human condition and just, meeting people. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I will be trying out the protein. I will see you at WrestleCon, everyone. This year, WrestleCon is in Las Vegas at the Westgate Resort and Casino, April 17th, 18th, and 19th. 18th, 19th, or 20th. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, but it's going to be really fun this year, I think.
I think so too. Well, Vegas, how could it not be? I love Vegas, and it's going to be a great time. We'll have a good time.
Hey, maybe you could dress up in your gimmick and go to the casino.
Well, I first started doing these cons. I thought, I'm going to go in my gear, and in LA, my first event of sobriety was LA WrestleCon, and I went in my tights and boots, and nobody said a word. And I was like, really? So I sold the boots and tights I had on, and so I just never did it. But it was a lot of work for something that nobody even said, wow, you got your tights on. Or, I bring the hat. I always wear the hat, of course. But now I got a new idea with my top hat. So,
oh, let's see. This is gonna be cool.
I've always had black or red have only been my two top hats ever. And I wanted to do something different. So this time I went with white.
Oh,
because
that's cool.
I'm gonna get all of the boys to sign it.
Yeah.
And either keep it or sell it, whatever I decide to do. But I've already got Sting, and there's AJ Francis, and Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn, and Paul Walter Hauser. So a lot of names on there. Badass Billy Gunn.
Yeah.
So just an idea with the white, and the white looked good, and you got the.
Yeah, I see the face, the smile. This is perfect. And then you're all tan. It's perfect for the show. I think you got to do that. It's Vegas. Everything's flashy, and you don't dress like the inside of a Las Vegas casino every day of your life. So you got to do it once and again. Yeah, there you go.
Flashy, flashy, flashy.
Thanks again. I will see you in April, and sit tight.